"I thought you weren't a superstitious man, Mr. Nolan," said Friedrich, a bald man in his 60s. Standing next to Nolan, he looked like a circus mouse. The house was lit from top to bottom with a dim glow, except for the small closet in front of which the psychologist and his patient now stood. "It's better not to take chances, because it's in the dark that it lurks." Friedrich had been intrigued by this man from the very beginning. It wasn't often that a shrink paid a home visit, and certainly not to debunk some foolish, baseless paranoia. After all, Nolan had shown none of the typical signs of mental imbalance. He had seemed perfectly ordinary at least. "All right," said Friedrich, pulling from his pocket the packet containing his last match. He struck it against the wall and lit the candle placed on the floor of the dark closet. The light revealed nothing more than a narrow, empty space with crumbling plaster, worn away by time. There, now it's fine. He thought back to that morning when none of this had begun. He had been working in his new office at 1327 Brown Drive, comfortably leaning against the leather-backed chair. After years of drudgery in his old workplace, he could now allow himself a little operational relaxation. He had been glancing at his schedule when a hulking man entered the room. From the moment he crossed the threshold, Nolan carried with him an indescribable stink. His vacant stare crowned the impression of disorientation, a man already broken. After sitting down, his body collapsed into the chair as though his muscles had given way. He rummaged in his pocket, pulled out a slip of paper and muttered, "You are—" He squinted his eyes as though he couldn't see. "Dr. Friedrich Bachmann." "Yes, I am," Friedrich replied. Bachmann was the surname he had taken at 13 after his father had died suddenly of a heart attack. His mother had died in childbirth, and he had been sent to an orphanage in Providence known as the House of Peculiar Boys, whereas peculiar could be changed in forgotten. "Do you have an appointment?" he asked. "No," the giant said. "Then what can I do for you?" "Nothing, except make the decline a little easier." Friedrich noticed the long scar stretching from the man's left ear to his chin. He decided to move carefully. "What do you mean?" "First of all, my name is Nolan Kant. I'm from the city, and I think I'm plagued by psychic hallucinations or something like that." He sat upright, his back pressing against the chair that reached just below his shoulder blades. "I don't know about you, but I personally don't believe in witchcraft, black magic, or curses. I'm not superstitious or paranoid, you understand. I'm the kind of man who needs a rational explanation for everything. That's why, when an old classmate from my ancient languages course showed me that book, I laughed, and I couldn't resist the urge to prove to him it was nothing but trash." Friedrich leaned in, curious to see where this was leading. Nolan's voice grew hoarse, then came a cough. "Would you like a glass of water, Mr. Nolan?" The man nodded. "Yes, thank you. Now, as I was saying, that book, dustier than anything else in the world, contained bizarre illustrations. At first they meant nothing to me, but that night I couldn't sleep, and the nights after that I suffered terrible nightmares about certain creatures. Even now I still do. And then one day I realized the nightmares were real." "Real?" Friedrich had begun scribbling notes. "Yes. At first it was just about lights found switched on. Then I began hearing growls from the closet, scratching at the windows at night, as though hundreds of claws were dragging across the shutters. Against my wife's advice, I thought simple medication would fix it. But in time I turned to stronger drugs. They clouded my mind and didn't permit me to see what was happening to my family." Friedrich felt pity. In that sorrowful face, he saw his own reflection, the boy of 13, imprisoned in the orphanage. "Do you have children, Mr. Nolan?" Friedrich asked suddenly. No, Nolan said, not anymore. What happened? A tear slid down Nolan's cheek and fell onto the carpet. It was him, he sobbed, that monster. It took them both. My wife first. Then, when it saw my son was left alone because the drugs clouded my mind, it took him too. It seized them with its putrid claw-shaped hands. And it left me. Friedrich asked gently, "What did it leave you?" Nolan raised his head, voice faint. "Nothing. It left me nothing. And it's all my fault." Before giving in to tears, he added something that chilled the doctor instantly. "Now, in the darkness, it loves to inhabit. It wants me. It's waiting for me to let down my guard, to let the dark take me. My house is full of candles now, and it doesn't dare approach while they're burning. But I don't know how long I can hold it off." Friedrich thought he might be able to help, but first he had to ask about the scar. "Mr. Kant, I'm sure a few sessions could take away much of the guilt you carry. But you must tell me about that wound." Nolan gave a half-smile, as if he had been waiting for the question. "Yes, I suppose I owe you an explanation," he began. "After my wife died, I decided my life had no meaning. I tried to kill myself. I bought a brand-new Glock 19, spent my last savings on it, and a box of bullets. But God, or perhaps the very being that had taken my wife, willed that my son, seeing me about to do something so foolish, deflected the gun at the last second." He paused, then added, "It's because of him I'm alive." "And what about the creature? The one that took your family?" "I don't know what it was. I only know it came from hell, and the passage it used was that book I told you about, and—" Friedrich glanced at his watch. 50 minutes had passed, 5 longer than his usual session. "I'm afraid our time is up, Mr. Nolan." But just as he stood, Nolan moved swiftly. "No, you haven't truly listened, which means I'll have to make you understand another way." Friedrich's eyes widened. Nolan was pointing a Glock 19 at him. It gleamed under the office light. "You're coming with me, then I'll know I'm not insane." The doctor tried to stay calm, though his skin prickled. "All right, Mr. Nolan, I'll come. But please, lower that thing." Nolan shook his head. Together they walked through the office and out into the street. "And don't bother calling for help. Shout all you want. I made sure no one's around." Friedrich realized he wasn't lying. Nolan did live in the city, though in a neighborhood that struck Friedrich as a cheap imitation of the Bronx. "Are we there?" he asked when the car stopped in a dark alley. Nolan's voice was calm, disturbingly so. He looked at Friedrich and said, "I don't want to hurt you, doctor, but you must see." What Friedrich saw was a house in ruin. The weather-worn paint filled him with dread. Several windows were shattered, as if struck by countless stones, or by countless claws scratching their way inside. He thought with a shiver. Nolan unlocked the door and gestured for him to enter first. From the threshold, Friedrich could see hundreds of candles scattered across the rooms. "Why so many candles? Couldn't you just turn on the lights?" he asked, already knowing the answer. "I suppose the monster cut the power, am I right?" Nolan said nothing, only nodded. They stepped inside, like frightened children retrieving a ball from the yard of a cruel neighbor. The door slammed shut behind them with a heavy thud. Every room was lit with flickering candles, wax dripping onto the floor, every room except one. The closet remained in shadow, defiantly, unnaturally dark. When Friedrich struck his match and lit the candle inside, the room filled with light. "There, now it's fine," Nolan said, then froze. From the closet came a scream, paralyzing, deafening, like the wail of a man trying to outcry an air raid siren. Frenzied, Friedrich tried to shut the door but couldn't. It was as if countless hands were battering it from the other side. Suddenly the scream twisted into something far more dreadful. It's the creature, Friedrich thought, its true voice. Instinctively they staggered back as the door burst open. A cold, piercing wind rushed out, howling like a ghost through treetops, snuffing out candles as it spread. Not all at once, but enough. When Nolan realized the darkness was advancing, he screamed over the demon's voice, "No, you won't have me. You wanted a sacrifice, then I'll give you one." In a flash, he snatched up the fallen gun and aimed it at Friedrich. "Get in," he ordered. The doctor's blood ran cold. He would be devoured, and no one would ever find his body. "Don't make me kill you here," Nolan thundered. Friedrich thought fast. He stepped back into the shadows, forcing Nolan to follow. Confused, Nolan lowered the gun slightly. That was the moment Friedrich lunged, striking him in the stomach and knocking him to the ground. As Nolan writhed, Friedrich pressed his foot against the man's neck and delivered a single fatal blow. Panting, he saw that only a few candles remained. He ran, desperate to escape before the house was swallowed in darkness. At the threshold, he turned and froze. Nolan's body was gone. Tiffany Holzner, the new cashier at the supermarket on 32nd Street, was overjoyed that day. Her boss had told her that if she kept up her good work, she'd soon have a fixed-term contract, signed personally by him. She thought the job suited her perfectly. She could work evenings and write in the mornings when her mind was sharpest. "You're amazing. In my opinion, you'll be the next Stephen King. Maybe call yourself Stephanie Queen," her mother teased. Tiffany loved writing, not pretentiously, but she was good at it. She read constantly, and her curiosity was boundless, a necessary trait for any writer. Lately, she had thought about writing a story about the strange man who came in every Friday. He was odd because he always bought the same thing, in bulk, boxes and boxes of matches. One day, as he pulled cash from his pocket, she ventured, "Excuse me, sir, I'm a writer and a very curious person. I was wondering," but she saw he wasn't listening. He was already heading for the exit, clutching the bag of matches tightly in his fist. She thought better of pressing further. Her job wasn't worth the risk. With a resigned sigh, she dropped the matter. But then the man turned back. His eyes glistened, his face contorted, on the verge of tears. And then he broke down. "Madame, did you know I was once a psychologist?" he stammered. "See this scar? That thing lurks in the dark." Then he composed himself. He looked at the young woman before him with bitterness, melancholy, regret, and he left. Tiffany stood puzzled. Who was that man, she wondered, and how had he gotten that terrible scar?